Hello everyone and welcome to Cinderful Gaming. I hope you're all doing well, I hope you're all staying safe, and most of all, I hope you're all fighting that war against the grey. Today's video, we're going to be going through my recent tournament experience at my local hobby store, Dragon's Lair in Salisbury, South Australia. We're going to talk about the event, the list I ran, the games I played over that, and in general, the general experience of the event. So with that said, let's get cracking into some of the basic details, and then we'll look at the meta of the event, and then we'll look at my list before going through all of my games. So we were going to play a one-day event, so most of you will know this means like 3 rounds, and it was 2,000 points. We had a 2.5 hour time limit for our rounds, and this was pretty solid. We didn't have any major games sort of play near time. Scenarios for the event, we had Tooth and Nail up first. This is a scenario where no reserves are allowed and all summoned units can't charge or shoot on the turn they arrive. The Vice, which is the scenario where the objectives start on the board corners and they move into the center to become one objective. And Veins of Gur is where you have 3 objectives that randomly appear across the table, and scoring is a little different in that you score points equal to the battle round number. With that said, let's go check out the meta. And so here we have the meta. We had a really spread meta at this event. It was absolutely amazing. We've only one double up of an army over 15 players, which just made for so much fun across the event. I don't know if anyone was unlucky enough to have to play both Soulblight Gravelord's armies. I didn't in my run. You can get that out of the way straight away. But this was really fun. Like, there was such a wide spread of armies, and those 2 Soulblight armies were extremely different in what they were. But yeah, it was just an absolute ton of fun with so many different armies seeing the table. We had Cities of Sigmar, Daughters of Cain, Deepkin, KO, Seraphon, Stormcast, Blades of Khorne, Slaanesh, Nurgle, Skaven, Flesh Eater Courts. Like I said, 2 Soulblight Gravelords, the only double up. One of them was a Nagash heavy list with some monsters, and the other was Blood Knights and Manfred, and then an Iron Jaws and a Cruel Boys. I mean, same battle tome there, but 2 different factions within that book. It was a ton of fun. I really like seeing this meta. Our meta in the state is just getting one varied. You're getting players who are being known for running certain armies over others, and others just being able to change at the drop of a hat. I know I can change what list I want to run a lot. I ran Stormcast at the last one. I ran Wanderers the one before that, and now I've ran a Hallowheart list, which we'll get to talking about right now. Alrighty, and so let's run through my list. I made a couple of changes on the list that I said I was going to run in the previous video, but it all pretty much remained the same. So for starters, Cities of Sigmar, obviously playing in the Hallowheart sub-faction. We've gone for the Grand Strategy Prize Sorcery, and we did take Inspired for +1 wound as our triumph. My general was Sorceress. She had the command trait Veteran of the Blazing Crusade. This puts an aura around her of Ignore Battle Shock, really useful for some of the things I'm doing with the army. And then she had both Ignite Weapons and Elemental Cyclone as her spells. We then had a Battle Mage who's got the Amulet of Destiny on him. This meant that both our little characters had some protection. I was really worried about like mortal wound shooting and stuff like that throughout the event. And it kept these 2 little characters alive, which provided me with both command points and some really useful spells. And so he was from Shaiish, so we got the cool -Bravery spell, and then we got Roaming Wildfire and Warding Brand from his 2 spells. We then had a Luminarch of Haiish with the White Battle Mage with Crystal Aegis and Seer Wounds, and then a Celestial Hurricane with Celestial Battle Mage with Seer Wounds and Elemental Cyclone. Lastly, for our heroes, I took a Steam Tank with Commander because I wanted to run a Steam Tank, and I gave it the Arcane Tome as an artifact, and then gave it the spell Flaming Weapon. With some really good solid units. 10 Dread Spears as my honoured retinue, 10 Free Good Guard, that should totally say Sword and Board there. 30 Free Good Handgunners, 20 Phoenix Guard, and then the Horrorghast and the Umbral Spell Portal. I was really happy with how this list went about. We've got the Battle Regiment and Command Entourage in there for a 5-drop army. I was pretty happy with how the list all went, in all honesty. I don't think there was a single bad performing unit in the book, in the army. Like, everything pulled its weight, everything did a job. Was really happy. I think the Luminarch was tons of fun. The Hurricane was really useful. The Steam Tank was really good. But for me, the best thing in this entire list, the thing that I really enjoyed using was the Horrorghast. That ability to turn off Inspiring Presence with it, with all this ranged damage output you can do, send it into a tight locked formation and start working out the numbers you need to do to each unit so they auto-fail this Battle Shock and run away, is really sweet. It pulled its absolute weight all event. I was really impressed with the Horrorghast, and will certainly be using it in some other lists and some other builds I've got ideas for. With that said, yeah, I don't think there was a single bad performer in the list. I was really happy with the list. We'll go through the games now, and I played some pretty solid armies, so I'm really happy with how this list performed. And so, game 1, I was playing Kruleboyz in the Tooth and Nail scenario. So, let's go through the Kruleboyz list I was playing. He had 2 units of Bolt Boys. He was playing in the sub-faction 4. Big Yellers that gets him the extra range on them. Had 3 units of Hobgrots, there's some screens, a nice big unit of Gut Rippers, and then a Corpse Ritter Vulture, the weird Crocodile thing, and a Marshcrawler Slogoth, along with a couple of Swamp Crawler Shamans. So, he had 6 drops, I had 5. This means I was able to outdrop him, and so what I did was I pretty much sat out of range of his guns turn 1. I purposely deployed out of range so he couldn't get his Big Yellow's abilities off. He couldn't shoot me turn 1, and then gave the Oryx the first turn. He had no choice really but to try and move up to get some battle tactics, to do some runs and stuff like that. And by doing so, he allowed me to get my Spell Portal out and Horrorghast out, and we pretty much pushed forward with them and managed to get some damage out with the Spell Portal, taking some Bolt Boys off really well. The Horrorghast was out and doing about his business, making sure he couldn't take Battle Shock tests and stuff like that around. It was really fun. And then once we took sort of clear of those middles, those Bolt Boys then moved out to the flank, and over here to the right hand side, the Sorceress and the Battle Mage moved out and recast my Spell Portal out that way and started really doing some damage to his Gut Rippers. At this point, I was pushing him pretty hard, and he came in on the other flank and actually managed to get rid of the Steam Tank pretty... Well, no, he didn't get rid of the Steam Tank, sorry. He did a lot of damage and actually left it on a single wound remaining. Unfortunately, I then, through a mix of Heroic Recovery, its own innate ability to heal, and a Seer Wound spell, completely healed it back up to full, and it just went chugging and churning back into the other unit of Kruleboyz, where the Horrorghast was now there, and did the 5 damage, or killed the 5 Kruleboyz required for them to auto-fail a Battle Shock test, and the last one ran away. End of turn 2, there were no Bolt Boys left on the table. The Hobgrots were severely depleted. All 3 of his monsters were in combat with my Phoenix Guard unit. The Phoenix Guard unit, while they're in combat, did manage to take down the Marshcrawler Slogoth pretty quick, and then made short work of his boss with some combined shooting power next turn to get me my Slay the Warlord, and finally his Crocodile Man did fall down and die, although he did manage to get the Steam Tank in the end there eventually as well. His Gut Rippers finally managed to come down on the flank. At this point, though, they'd taken 2 of my area effect spells out of the spell portal, and this had really done the damage to the Gut Rippers and just completely neutered them, and they were actually seen off by the Free Guild Guard in the end there. I should mention as well, he had to take turn 3 priority, which meant I removed an objective, and I removed the top right where I was much weaker on, and pretty much meant that I had control of the objectives quite predominantly, and by turn 4 it was a pretty done and dusted game. This was pretty good. Some good play on the deployment really set me up for a good turn. I really had no choice but to come forward, because if he didn't come forward, I was able to just use Spell Portal and just spread out. I had more models, more shooting, and I had longer range shooting with a 30-inch range. I pretty much did this turn 1 where I was able just to ping him off with 30-inch range shooting from the Steam Tank, from my Luminarch, and from my rifle, and was just doing enough damage to those Bolt Boys that he had to come forward and try and do something. With that, though, that was the end of the game 1. I won this one pretty convincingly. And so, second game, I drew the Stormcast Eternalist with the brand new dragons. The Stormcast Eternalist had a unit of 2 Stormdrake Guard, had the Knight Draconis and the extra Stormdrake Guard as a single model, then had a unit of 15 Judicators and 4 Fulminators. He was playing in Hammers of Sigmar, and then he also had a Lord Relictor with Translocation and a Knight Incantor there as well. Big thing that he really started, he had the Holy Command for the additional round of shooting out of the Judicators, but because we were playing the Vice, even though he deployed right on his line, we were 12-inch away from the center of the table, and so I actually had enough room to deploy 36 inches back from him, away from him, so that he couldn't charge me turn 1. I deployed right on my backline, like everything shoved right against my backline. He was a 1-drop, meant he couldn't get in, he couldn't get enough of the range and the damage and all that sort of stuff. And pretty much what this meant is that he had no choice but to give me first turn. And so with the first turn, what I chose to do is I pushed up Steam Tank and the Phoenix Guard as bait, and pretty much tried to bait in those dragons. And I just put some buffs on the Phoenix Guard and the Steam Tank, just put things like Mystic Shield and all that sort of stuff on them, as far as protection, etc., and let them go forward. And he dropped down his Judicators and actually chose to shoot my Luminarch. And over the course of the 2 shots, the Judicators actually got rid of the Luminarch, and he didn't do a lot else by getting rid of that Luminarch. I really do think he shot the wrong target here. At this point, he'd moved forward some of the Stormdrake Guard and stuff like that. But for me, it was, I think he picked the wrong target. I don't know if he picked the wrong target or if that, just because his army was so far behind, he couldn't do anything. And he sort of moved in towards my bait and then didn't get any of his charges off. His Fulminates had to run to sort of move up the table. And so he really, I think, was banking on a double turn here. And I ended up getting the turn, and what happened was I got the Horrorghast off, sent that into the Judicators, and did some really big damage to them, which ended up at the end of the turn causing them to flee. I then charged these Fulminators with the Phoenix Guard, knowing it was better to charge those Fulminators than face a round of damage 3. And in the end, those Phoenix Guard actually made short work of those Fulminators. 2 rounds, and those Fulminators were gone. Those Phoenix Guard rolled absolutely hot. I was using Ignite weapons on them, as well as giving them +1 to hit. So that really just sped through the process of getting rid of them. And his Knight Draconis died as well the same turn as the Judicators through massive firepower from the handgunners and the Hurricanum shooting. I got rid of that Knight Draconis pretty quick as well. His other 2 Stormdrake Guard then came in after I had mauled a lot of his army. The Steam Tank, however, along with the Hurricanum, the handgunners made pretty short work of them. His other Stormdrake Guard, the solo one, was over on my right-hand flank trying to deal with some free good guard and actually failed to kill a unit of 10 in a single round. Lost him a battle tactic at this point. I then Inspiring Present them and really held on that side. And meanwhile, the Phoenix Guard, because I made such short work, the Fulminators were able to come back, clean up that last Stormdrake Guard there. And the Steam Tank came back and helped deal with the rest of those 2 Stormdrake Guard. At that point, he had his 2 backfield characters left, and I was middle of the table, ready to just push on and get rid of them as well. It was a pretty quick, done and dusted game. I really do think he fell for trying to come in and playing too hard on that double, because as soon as he lost that, I was able to neuter a few of his units. The Judicators and the Fulminators were pretty much done and dusted with as soon as he pushed forward too far and let me get into him. And lastly, game 3. So I played one of the other 2-0 players and the eventual winner in the last round, and this was Mr. Alexander Cron. He was playing Daughters of Cain, not KO again. This is 2 tournaments in a row. He's not run KO. He's no longer a KO player. He's a filthy, filthy meta chaser. And game 3, we were playing Veins of Girth. This is one where the objectives pop up randomly, and I was playing against his Daughters of Cain Bow Snakes, Combat Snakes, and Morathi. So he had a unit of 15 bows, 15 combat, another 5 combat, Morathi, and a Melusai Iron Scale as his list, and some Kanare Heart Renders as well. And so turn 1, I deployed back to make sure he couldn't double shoot me. Once again, this just seems to be a tactic like you're having to like play with now, of like avoiding these mortal wound shooting units, and it does get annoying. But that's what I had to do. He then gave me first turn because he was a 1-drop, so I moved forward and tried to sort of bait him in with the Steam Tank and the Phoenix Guard. I got off my spell portal and did some mortal wounds, killed 5 of his bow snakes straight up, and then from there, he charged in Morathi, held up my Phoenix Guard, and the Phoenix Guard actually held her up quite well. And in the end, she would die to the Steam Tank coming in and supporting the Phoenix Guard. He pressed me really, really hard. I killed another few of the bow snakes. The 5 model unit of snakes eventually died to my steam tank. And the other combat snakes on the end ended up only being like 3 models. This was a really, really bloody game. In all honesty, it was just a lot of very slight maneuvers, taking objectives off each other, playing with like very few models on the table. Marathi was gone quick. The bow snakes were the only like decent sized unit left on the end of the table, and they were only like 7 models. I think at the end of the game, he only had the Iron Scale 7 bow snakes and 2 and the Heart Renders, and like maybe 2 of the Combat Snake, the Unit 15. He did end up tabling me on turn 5. It went down pretty close to the wire. Like, he took out the Luminarch pretty early on, once he could get in range, and got rid of the Luminarch first, and then got rid of my Hurricanum the turn after acting, I think, which really, really hurt. Meant I wasn't just able to project my power as well. Though, like, I played for a lot of points and gathered a lot of extra points across the table in this thing, which pretty much gave me the 3rd place finish. I had a really strong loss here. Yeah, it sort of blows out in the end because of the scenario we're playing, but I still managed to rack up 20-something points for myself, which put me in a good position to actually get the 3rd place finish all in all. Like I said, I was really happy with the list. It performed well. It played 3 really good armies, played a lot of mortal wound output damage, and sort of dealt it back really well. I was really happy with a lot of things. I don't think there was any bad performers at all in the list. I think this is a solid list, in all honesty. I don't know what I would do to change it. I think it's a good list. So we'll play around with it and we'll see what I like. But next monthly was said to be late January, so I don't know what I'm going to run there. Maybe I might take my own Daughters of Cain there, maybe. Or maybe I might try and run something like Settler's Gain, or even take my Lumineth. So this was really fun though. I had a really enjoyable time at this event, with 3 great games, and ended up taking home a little bit of prize money for some store credit, and managed to pick myself up a Primaris Space Marine Librarian, which was cool as a little bit of a prize. So all in all, a fantastic event. Thank you, as always, to Peter and Len, who run fantastic events at Dragons of Salisbury. If you are a South Australian local in Adelaide, Dragons of Salisbury is the best place to play Warhammer Age of Sigmar in the state by far. Come down, check it out, and have some games. Well, that's the end of the video. Thank you all for watching. We hope you enjoyed it. If you did, please don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to the channel, and let us know in a comment below what you enjoyed about the video. Also, if you'd like to come chat more with me and other members of our fine community, you can do so by following the link in the video's description to our Discord server. Lastly, if you'd like to help support the channel monetarily by supporting us either on Patreon or YouTube members, you can do so by following the links once again in the video's description. All that help means the world to us and allows us to keep doing what we are doing on the channel. A special shout out to everyone who does help support the channel, so a special shout out to our Patreons: Christian Weir, James Soren, Greenskins Gaming, AJC, Kenny Lyle, Outer and Shop First, Andrew Bowen, Nathan Fee, The Rising Ape, Q Dynamic, Agu, Anthony B, Anton Nielsen, JJ Austrian, Average Wargamer, Domir, and Mark Harvey. And to our YouTube members as well: Green Roots Gaming, Kenton Young, The Real Zeop, Chris Wallace, Ronya, Vinny, Lock Lorick, The Johnny84, David Ellsworth, Revenar, and Wolfric Nick. Lastly, a special shout out first of all to Lady Witchfox Art, who does all the amazing artwork for the channel, and to Xmorphic, who does all the amazing background work for our Discord server. Thank you all for watching. Once again, everyone, stay safe, stay well, and most of all, keep fighting that war against the Grey. Ciao for now.